crowd. I said good evening. All right, there it is. There it is. We all, woo! There we go. Thank you for being here at We Rise. We're so glad to have you. Did you all get a chance to look through that incredible gallery? Yes, great. Well, we hope you will tell your friends we are extending this incredible exhibit for another 2 weeks. So please tell your friends and family who you'd like to come back and see the space that it's available to you. We are honored to host this evening on Memorial Day, Veterans We Rise in Service, a conversation on veterans' mental health and well-being. We're going to jump right into our first panel, but we are going to have a whole evening that's also infused with art and dialogue. So we'll begin with an opening panel. We have a performance by the Collective Memory Project, and we'll close with a fireside chat on veterans' mental health and wellness with two incredible people. So we want you to stick around for this incredible program. It's going to be a powerful one. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you the panel, beginning with our moderator, Mike Dowling, a producer, an author, and a veteran advocate who will be moderating today's conversation. Please welcome. Yes. Joining him is Christine Appa, the Executive Director of Awaken Arts. John Hargendigi, who's also with Awaken Arts. Mike Hebert, also with Awaken Arts. And Elliot McKenzie, a performing artist who also was featured at today's Memorial Day barbecue outside. So please welcome this panel to the stage.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Dowling. Thank you so much for being here at such a wonderful, wonderful event. And I hope you're all having a great Memorial Day. And I hope you all remember to honor the fallen that have sacrificed their lives for our country all these years. And in the spirit of Memorial Day and military veterans, we're here with the program to talk about how arts has had a great impact and great benefit in helping military veterans in the community with the therapeutic component that it has, and through the different programs and the mediums that are out there in the community. And so I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story real quick and my pathway into the arts community. But first, I'd like to have everyone on the panel just briefly introduce themselves and what organization they represent, and if they're they're all veterans except for Christine here, but that's okay, because she's doing great work that's impacting the veteran community. So I'm Mike Dowling, Marine Corps veteran.
I'm Christine. I run Awaken Arts.
John Hargendigi, Navy vet and director of the Veterans Program at the VA.
Mike Hebert, United States Marine. I also am a mentor with the same program.
I'm Elliot McKenzie. I'm a recording artist.
What branch were you with?
I was in the Marine Corps. Hoorah.
Hoorah, hoorah.
Hoorah.
Do we have any veterans in the audience by chance? Raise your hand. Good to go. Awesome. So when I moved to Los Angeles at the end of 2010, early 2011, I immediately wanted to find a community because I didn't know very many people here in LA. And one of the first things I did was volunteer at the VA, and I was going to school at UCLA learning entertainment production. And I found out about a program at the Writers Guild Foundation, where it turns out for the last several years, the Writers Guild Foundation once a year offers a writing program where they take military veterans for a 2-3 day weekend, and they partner them with A-list screenwriters and producers, and they teach the veterans how to express their ideas on paper and how to start writing and how to develop a proper structure, et cetera, et cetera. And so I went through that and not knowing what to expect, and I had such a great benefit from that because I never really talked about my experiences to anybody. I never really talked about the trauma that I saw. You know, I've experienced, my best friend was killed in action. I was in Fallujah in Iraq in 2004 and witnessed a lot of atrocities and war. And I just kind of bottled all those things up internally, never really expressed how I felt about any of those things. Writing became such a therapeutic art for me personally. I actually ended up writing my own book. And it was such an incredible cathartic experience that I just couldn't get enough of writing, and would advocate for all these writing programs for veterans that were out there. And what I discovered personally was that through writing, I felt more and more comfortable expressing my emotions, expressing experiences that I went through, and I found it easier to communicate what I went through the art of writing. And because of that, it helped me open up more and more and speak to other veterans and encourage them to do the same thing. And so I went on to co-found a nonprofit called Veterans in Film and Television, where we organize military veterans that work in the entertainment industry. And the reason why we did that, well, many reasons, but one of the big reasons is there's a lot of programs out there in the arts, whether it's writing, music, filmmaking, which we're going to talk about. But all those programs, it's hard to find out about them unless you bring everybody together in one place and communicate them to everybody. And so we did that, and next thing you know, veterans are participating in all kinds of programs, starting their own programs, and it's kind of been this snowball effect ever since. So the reason why I'm saying all these things is because if you have a veteran in your family or in your life, and they're having a tough time expressing themselves to you, to your family members, to friends, please encourage them to find out about our arts program, because maybe they feel more comfortable communicating what they're going through visual arts, performing arts, or writing or whatnot. So that's why I'm communicating all this to you all. I'm trying to give you the tools that you need to communicate with veterans in your life who might be having a tough time expressing what they've gone through, and hopefully they can start on a path of therapy at that point. So with that being said, I'm gonna let Christine talk about one of the many programs in the County of Los Angeles that is having a great impact on the veteran space. So go ahead, Christine.
Thank you. I actually started Awaken Arts because I'm a rape survivor myself, and dealing with my rape trauma, the thing that I did was I'm a writer as well, and I'm also a dancer. And I saw this moment in time where I realized, the at-risk youth that we work with, they don't necessarily have the space to speak or share their story through different art forms because the arts were getting taken away. They can't get out their aggression because there's no more physical education. There's just, different things they were being robbed of. And I was like, what if I created a space where that existed? And I had an opportunity to work with this school called Sunburst Youth Academy, which is run by the National Guard. And so we do this program with at-risk youth, and the veterans that actually run that program and work with the kids are like, Christine, why can't we do this program, And I thought about my brother, who's also a veteran, and I said, okay, let's try to get into this space. And so I reached out to the Long Beach VA because I had a few connections in there. It took me a year and a half to get, even the opportunity to do something like this with the veterans. And I did it with a small group. I think there was 6 of you guys. John was one of the first guinea pigs, and he is now the director. And so my vision for this program, as I did the research, you look at veterans coming back and transitioning back into our society. They do so much better when they are in position to serve and help others, because that's in their mindset to do, is to help, to go into the front lines and help each other. And so my vision for this program was not for it to be run by me or other artists, but to be run by veterans. Not all of the program, helpers are veterans, but we are run completely by John and Mike. And he's not just a mentor. He's a lot more than that now, even though he doesn't want to admit it. But I think that, growing this program and seeing them grow and how they've just transitioned the program that I created for at-risk youth into something that is really for the veterans that they serve has been just so amazing. And I've just, helped empower them and grow in their leadership and change the program to what suits their needs. And I'm just so excited to see that.
And John, do you mind talking about how you got into the program, what intrigued you about it, and how you felt you had growth because of it?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been doing art since I was a kid, and having that, I went through childhood traumas of sexual abuse, along with domestic violence issues with my mom and a stepfather, and dealing with that and using art, and then joining the military. and having that opportunity to continue to do art while I was in, and then I served in Iraq in 2007, saw some atrocities there. Not to just kind of glaze over it, but I mean, you see what you see, and there's no coming back normal from it. And when I came home, I was drinking heavily, to the point where nobody within my circle of friends or family was knowing that I was drinking by myself in my room. Got to a point where I was able to get to a moment of sobriety, and decided to take that moment to really step into becoming sober. At that same time, I had found out about Awaken Arts at the VA in Long Beach through one of our counselors, a mutual counselor of Mike and ours, who really put that effort forth in saying, hey, dude, you like painting, you like doing all this, let me put you in a program. Let me put you in something that's going to help you grow. Because I can see already within yourself that you want to get out of that old life and get into something new and get into something that's going to grow you more. And through that, we've gone for about 5 years now. We count it by how old my daughter is, because my wife was pregnant at the time, and that was 5 years ago. So, but from there, we've gone and we've been able to reach hundreds, if not thousands, of veterans through using art. Myself, I'm a fine artist. I paint, I draw, either with anything from aerosols to acrylics, oils, whatever the medium is, I'll try it.
So, John, I just want to touch on, I'm glad that you mentioned your spouse and your daughter, right? Because mental health just doesn't affect the individual. It affects the family, the community. It's really a community issue, right? Not just personal issues. And so can you just touch, if you don't mind, can you touch on how your issues maybe had an effect on your family and how the growth through the program helped with that?
Yeah, definitely. I was diagnosed in 2010 with PTSD because of violent outbursts and what have you. And I was just dating my wife then. And she saw me go from mood swings to just the crap I brought home, and having to deal with that and being like, hold on, this shouldn't be normal, but this is what my life is like. And so having her and like, hey, you need help too. And having my mom and having friends that have turned around and said, hey, it's time to get help. And it's really time you need to take control of what you have, and turn it and make it work to a positive manner. So that's what my wife and that community, that small community of friends and family, that's what they did for me.
So would you say because of their recommendation saying for you to go seek out some kind of treatment, would you say that them doing that really kind of helped you towards that path?
Yeah, that definitely kicked me in the rear to get in there.
Right.
So
I'm glad you're saying that, because for all of you that are participating, again, if you have a family member or whatnot, just please don't be afraid to speak up or talk to them or encourage someone to go seek some kind of treatment. And moving down, John, when did you find out about the I'm sorry, Mike. This is John right here. Mike. Mike is a fellow Marine. We actually served in Iraq relatively around the same time. We just found this out, by the way. And talk to us about your pathway towards growth and getting involved with the program.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. I did 3 tours in Iraq as an infantryman. I got blown up 3 times in IEDs and 1 time by an RPG. The 3rd time coming back from Iraq was a little different for me. I was lost. I didn't know what to do. I drank a lot because I thought that was the answer. I mentally broke down, like, completely, and I had no idea what to do. I went to the VA hospital, talked about the resources that were there, and one of them was Awaken Arts. It was called Creative Expressions at the time, and I saw John in the photo, and he's drawing these pictures and whatnot, and my case manager at the time kind of force-fed it to me and was like, every time he saw me, you should try this, you should try this. And it was it was a great tool because I had quit drinking. Alcoholism ran like rapid in my family, and I didn't want to be the same as, you know, the rest of them. So I needed a different outlet, a different vehicle for my hate and discontent and things that were wrong with me. My anxiety goes from 0 to 100, and it may take hours for it to go down to, you know, 75%, for it to be manageable. But I found this program, and at first it took me a while for it to like dig its teeth into me, and through repetition and muscle memory, it kind of forced me to open up. PTSD is, you know, stigmatized these days, and it was hard at first to admit that I had it. And
were you experiencing this on your own? I mean, did you have any? Does your family, were they aware of anything you were going through at this point?
My wife kind of had, my girlfriend at the time, kind of had an idea, but she didn't understand the completeness of it, you know, like the whole picture, until she started going to classes for it too.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that. So just so you know, family members can go to mental health treatment with veterans, right? So veterans can go alone, but they can also bring a spouse, a child, a parent, or any kind of support network that they want, so that they could better understand the veteran and their household, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and how would you say she benefited from going with you?
Oh yeah, completely. She knows how to handle me more, like handle my bad, you know, my downs, so to speak. She's able to sense it and then point me in the right direction to better it, you know.
And so talk about your participation in the arts program. What specifically drew you to it?
Okay, so I like painting. I'm a painter. I do backgrounds mostly. I love like scenery and pop art. I love cartoons, that kind of thing. But I am like the bulldog of the organization at the hospital. I take our vets that have any problems, and I mean anything, I take them right to where they go and make sure that they get the proper treatment that they're looking for. That most of the time you're pushed away because you don't have the right piece of paperwork, or you went to the wrong building. I don't take no. I say, okay, well, bring me to this right place, and so to speak. So
great. Yeah, of course.
So that was part of another component of this program that I wanted to create, is that these guys fight for each other's rights and fight for the services that already exist in the VA. And so being in a community with each other and painting and doing something like that, people would normally think like, why are you painting with these guys? Is to start these conversations. Like one of the things that he was able to access was Voc Rehab, which is that, you know, he got access to school things, and it was through conversations with other veterans in these art classes that he was able to find out about the services that exist for them. And so it's not just about the arts and the healing process of it. It's about the camaraderie and the band of brothers that they have that is created from being in the same room with each other. So that's a great example.
That's great. Yeah, and also it just takes communicating.
Yeah.
Just saying something, just asking questions, talking, and also being knowledgeable about a program that might be out there. So now you're all armed with at least one great program that you can recommend to a veteran in your life. If you feel you need to. Elliot, I'd like to talk about your background. What did you do in the Marine Corps, Elliot?
So I was in the infantry. I was a rifleman.
Hoorah. And also, I just want to add, not everyone in the military is hardcore like these gentlemen right here. They're all infantrymen. They're on the front lines, you know, but we have intelligence, drone operators, people in the rear supporting everyone on the front lines, but that doesn't mean that they all don't experience some kind of traumatic events during their military experience as well. So Elliot, take us through how you found music, right? And how music has been a great outlet for you.
So I've been doing music since I was a kid. When I was in 5th grade, I started playing drums. And then in high school, I transitioned from being a drummer to a musician or to a singer. And then I joined the Marine Corps pretty much right after high school. I was 5 days out of high school graduation, and I was on the yellow footprints becoming a Marine. Went to Iraq, Ramadi, Iraq in 2005. Got out of the Marine Corps in 2008, and then immediately started experiencing symptoms of severe PTSD, depression, anxiety, hyper-awareness. And I was in school at the time, so I was in college. And I wanted to go to college because I was trying to figure out, what do I do with my life? I don't really know. I just got out of the Marine Corps. I was in the grunt, or I was in the infantry. I don't know what to do. So I was like, let me go to school, see if that'll help. So I was in school and I was doing music at the same time. And it wasn't working. I couldn't focus in classes. My anxiety was through the roof. I couldn't take tests. I was failing this class, failing that class. So I dropped out of school and I started getting counseling through the VA at a vet center in Corona, California, out here. And the counselor that I had was really good at her job, and she was like, let me know what your symptoms are. So I listed my symptoms for her, and she said, okay, I'm going to explain to you why you're doing each one of these things. And then along with that, she started making suggestions about how I can deal with each symptom that I had. One of the most powerful suggestions that she made was, you said you do music, right? And I was like, yeah, I've been singing since I was in high school. She's like, why don't you use music as a form of therapy? Because I had never thought of music as a form of therapy until this happened. And so I was like, you know what, that actually might be right. And she was like, yeah, you get an adrenaline rush when you perform on stage. You can express yourself through songwriting. And I was like, you know what, you're absolutely right. So I took that advice and I ran with it. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So ever since about 2013, I've been doing music. And my debut album is going to come out this year. Last year, I released a song, thank you. Last year was the first time that I was ever actually able to talk about my military experiences with PTSD in my music, because for a while I was going through a transition of trying to figure out myself, trying to get the counseling, trying to get the help. And then in 2008, I didn't mention I was actually homeless, which is how I ended up in that situation, going to the VA. So 2013 comes around, I go through the counseling, I start doing music. Last year, I finally was able to create a song that I call Gunshots, which is about being a veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder. And some of you may know, some veterans will come home and will experience hyper-awareness, and with hyper-awareness comes, let's say hypothetically you're in a grocery store, and there's a veteran and there's a family with a kid has a balloon. The balloon accidentally pops. That popping of the balloon reminds that veteran of being in a firefight, takes him back to being in combat. So you might see a veteran in that situation duck behind grocery counters. He's, in your mind, freaking out. He's having an episode. So that's what Gunshots is about, the song that I wrote that came out last year. I don't know if any of you were here earlier today when I performed, but I actually performed that song. And that song is near and dear to my heart because that actually was me. I was in a grocery store, and a kid with a balloon, a young boy with a balloon, and his family, I don't know if they were at a graduation, what they were at, they had celebration balloons. Somehow one of the balloons got popped. That immediately took me back to being in a firefight in Ramadi, and I ducked behind the tomato counter. And people were looking at me like, what the hell is wrong with that guy? Who is that guy? Why is he freaking out? It's just a kid that popped a balloon. And to me, I was in the middle of a firefight, and I had no idea because that sound literally took me back, and it was like having a living dream. And so being able to put that song together and actually get that off my chest and tell that story through music and a music video that came with it was extremely therapeutic to me. And throughout this entire process, music has been an extremely therapeutic form of expression. It's been able to get a lot of things off my chest when I perform on stage. I call every performance that I do my mini therapy session. My album is going to be called Therapy Session. I'm actually a member of the company that Mike co-founded, VFT, Veterans in Film and Television, which is now Veterans in Media and Entertainment, which is actually how I got here today. They've gotten me a lot of gigs for music. And so music has been able to literally save my life.
That's an incredible story. I mean, Now, he said some key things that I want to circle back on. One was you mentioned you were homeless at one point. Is that right?
Yeah, I was homeless in 2008. Yeah.
And how long were you homeless for?
I was actually living at Villages of Cabrillo for a year, so from 2008 to 2009.
Okay, so I'm glad that you said that. I'm not glad that you're homeless, but I want to touch on that for a second. And the reason why is because a lot of people aren't aware of this, but Los Angeles County has the highest population of veterans than any other county in the country. We just do. And more veterans move to this city than any other city in the country, okay? And so as a result, there's a lot of great resources out there for veterans, but there's also big issues going on in the community, such as homeless. We have the highest homeless veteran population. But the reason why I want to talk about it just real quickly is because there's a stigma and a stereotype to homeless veterans, that they're alcoholics, drug addicts, that they're on the streets begging for money, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, there's certainly a component of that that's involved in that community. But at the same time, there's a lot of homeless veterans that are living in their cars, that just don't have a roof over their head. And they're still students, right? And they're going to the gyms to shower up. And you would have no idea that that veteran is homeless because they look squared away. They just do. But internally, they're not winning the battle inside, and it's causing all these external issues in their life, and you would have no idea. And so I'm just bringing that up because not every veteran out there who is homeless is that homeless veteran that's out on the street, which we're trying to help, but they're also veterans that are in these halfway homes, that are in these transitional homes. And I just want you to be aware of that. They just, a lot of us are one paycheck away sometimes from being out there. And so it's just not as easy sometimes for veterans who go through this traumatic experience, this really impactful experience in the military, and then they come home and they're trying to transition. It can be very overwhelming. And would you say you experienced some of that with the veterans?
Yes. We actually had a veteran named Jeff, and he was one of the first illustrators of the military. He was hired on as an illustrator, and he would take the bus from wherever he was at to make sure that he was there every Friday. I think he only missed like one. I think he did 2 sessions. And we tried to, we helped set him up to get, you can get a phone through the VA, and just through the program, we were able to help him access some of the things that he had no idea existed. And I think that, having programs like ours, it really gets them into the rooms and getting access to those programs that are specifically for homeless veterans. And it is, and Jeff was totally, you would never think that he was homeless. He just looked like he was a guy with a backpack just cruising around Los Angeles. And, and he would draw in his spare time. He would, sit in the park and draw. And so I think, like what you said, nobody would even know that he was homeless if you went and you talked to him.
Sure. A good friend of mine was homeless at one point with a family. He had a wife and children, and he had relationship issues because of the mental health issues he had been going through, and that caused him to technically be homeless. No, but he went on to get his degree from USC and get his master's in social work, and is now a leading veteran advocate in the community. But he was starting out as homeless. So you can have you can still have a great outcome from the great tragedy that you go through. And so all of us, all of the veterans that are, including Christine, we're all examples of having experienced a very low time in our lives, but been able to harness that, to channel it into a different outlet and create great success for individually for all of us. Is there anything else you guys like to add, Mike, John, about your experience? Continue why you stay involved.
Yeah, I mean it's healing on 2 ends. You have the veteran who you're helping work through stuff, and you're also working through stuff yourself. Right now, I'm actually in the process of getting my degree for art therapy to be a full-fledged art therapist licensed. But using that in order to help other vets. I mean, Mike, the way he came in, we've had multiple vets that have come in, don't want to associate with anybody, completely separate themselves, and then slowly start to integrate. And it takes time, but using art and using a medium, whether it's a physical art, whether you're dancing, whether you're singing, any way that you can express yourself you have the power to reintegrate yourself into feeling all right. I mean, we all go through spells. I know I do. I still do. You know, I know Mike does because me and him are constantly on each other. So knowing that you have this power in order to express yourself, in order to express your mind and what have you, it really is, it's a powerful thing. It really
and you mentioned that you guys hold each other accountable, essentially, and that's a very big deal. That's a big. And Elliot, you actually mentioned that your therapist or the woman that you saw offered a lot of support and told you to get into music and follow your passion. That's a very big deal. When I first came out here, I was very fortunate to meet a Vietnam veteran who had 3 tours, wounded, highly decorated. I was volunteering at a veteran affairs event, and he just happened to be there and introduced himself. It turned out he was a highly, highly respected banker in Los Angeles, very well educated. And on the side, he would go to his own Vietnam veteran therapy groups throughout his whole adult life. And he told me how I should find my own community and my own veterans to start on that same path. So, and I'll never forget him taking me underneath his wing and encouraging me to do that. So we only have about several minutes left, and we wanted to do some Q&A. So now's the time. If anyone has any questions about veterans and mental health, how to approach veterans in your lives, or what else is out there, please, we'd love to hear whatever questions you may have. That gentleman down there.
Hi, Paul Freeze, Army veteran. I've done a lot of work with homeless veterans for more than 25 years. First of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for your resilience and your example of honor and helping remind our country what we owe our veterans. The county is launching a very formidable and promising peer-to-peer support to engage veterans as a conduit and lifeline to help other veterans come out of the darkness and the alienation they've suffered of feeling betrayed by their country. How many of you were helped on your journey to overcome post-traumatic stress? I assume you know we call it post-traumatic stress rather than post-traumatic stress disorder, because it's a natural and predictable experience of battle. And it disorders your life, but it's not a disorder in the sense we traditionally looked at it. But I'm curious, how many of you had peers who helped you, as a lifeline to get back to the wonderful examples you are today?
I'm certainly. So the question is, did we all have someone in our lives as a peer-to-peer that held us accountable? I absolutely did. And again, that Vietnam veteran was the very first one that held me accountable. I, in turn, have held other veterans that I've come across who have tried to go different directions in their lives. I've held them accountable to make sure that they've been on their path. And I appreciate the question, because we all can't do this alone, right? No matter how tough we are, no matter how hard we feel we are, we really can't do it alone oftentimes. So yeah, my answer is yes.
Yeah, peer-to-peer is the basis of our design for our program. And having that accountability to one another is one of the biggest parts. I know when I was getting into my sobriety, I have really close friends that I grew up with, as well as a few gents that served with me that would keep me on, like, hey, you're not drinking. Hey, you're not doing this. And keeping me on my path to sobriety completely.
I still keep in touch with the majority of my platoon from when I was in. We're tight group of brothers. We all hold each other accountable, in everyday life. And then for all my mental stuff, all my PTSD and all that stuff, it's John. I talk to John weekly, if not daily. And thank you.
Aw.
For me, it started, honestly, with that counselor. That I didn't mention that counselor is actually a Marine Corps veteran herself. She was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, so she personally understood where I was coming from with the PTSD. So she was the first person that really held me accountable. She would call me every single day and make sure if I was doing this, I was pulling off of that. Like if I had a certain symptom that I was doing, she would be like, well, what did I tell you? Don't do that. Do this instead. Are you going to go perform? Book yourself for a show. Write a song. Do this. Do that. And so she was always constantly on me, making sure that I was on my P's and Q's.
And I'm glad that you brought up PTSD. I'm sorry, real quick, just because, personally, I don't like it being called a disorder, because I feel these are natural reactions to traumatic experiences that we all go through. I like to call it post-traumatic growth. It's how do you grow as a result of those traumatic experiences, but officially it's still called PTSD.
I just wanted to say that the design of their program was having this in mind, because I knew, even though I have PTSD, I understood, and I did a lot of research on the veteran population, and I knew that, even though I have experienced trauma, I'm still an outsider. And I created this program knowing that I wanted it to be primarily veteran run, because of the things that come out of it. And, these guys, I had a really bad PTSD episode about 2.5 years ago, and the only people that kept me going were these guys, and we had another Vietnam vet, Bill Weatherford, who would call me almost every day with him and his wife to make sure I was okay. And, and it is just that brotherhood that they create in this program that I'm just so excited to see, and it's really important, that peer-to-peer contact.
Any other questions? Yes, in the...
Good afternoon. I'm Josefina Dungana. I'm a clinical professional with the Department of Mental Health. And it's really enriching to hear from you how music and the arts are powerful tools for our healing. I myself am a survivor. I suffered PTSD, panic attacks, and depression. And what brought me to what I am now, being a help to others, is music and dance. I love to sing, and I do dancing. My husband told me, if you want to get better, let's go line dancing. Let's go ballroom dancing. And so we went. We had a private tutor because it's hard for him to be on the ballroom with other people, but it healed me. I don't have to go through my medication. I stopped my therapy because now I heal myself. So I'm so grateful to you for letting us know that the arts and music are powerful tools for us to get better and heal. We all go through complicated trauma in our lives, but then again, there's healing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Sharing your experience, and also dance, right? So believe it or not, I know a lot of veterans that participate in salsa dancing, and there's a huge nonprofit and program where veterans can participate in salsa. It's actually very, very big. And you also mentioned that we all go through it, which we do. I don't want people to think that veterans have cornered the market on PTSD. We all experience traumatic events throughout our life, and that's why it's a community issue, not just a personal issue. Do we have any other questions from the audience? No?
Good.
Listen, we appreciate every one of you that came out today. We knew that you could experience your Memorial Day at home, at a barbecue at the beach, but you came here to share it with the community here in downtown. Please stick around. They have a great, two of the people that are really pioneering mental health initiatives in the community here are going to be speaking next, and they are great inspirations to the whole veteran community and mental health. So thanks so much. Thanks to our panel. Can we give a round of applause to the panel?
And if you guys wanted to get linked in with Awaken Arts, we're on Instagram at Awaken Arts, and you can check out our website, awakenarts.org, to see all of the programs that we have. Operation Art, which is at the Long Beach VA, and we also have an at-risk youth program called Catalyst that you guys can be part of if you really want to serve and help at-risk youth.
Thank you.
Can we please give it up for this incredible panel and the work they do in the world? Thank you. Thank you all so much. We're going to give them a moment to clear the stage. Thank you all so much. And now, how about some art through performance? What do you all think about that? Yes. I'm really excited to bring this dance group up here. This is called the Collective Memory Project. Members of the Big Show Company's Collective Memory Project. It's an original dance theater inspired by the survival memories of U.S. military veterans. It's choreographed and directed by Ariane McBean, and they're going to give us an incredible performance that is so fitting for today on Memorial Day. So will you all please put your hands together, give a warm welcome, warm this room up for this set of performers as we welcome the Collective Memory Project to the stage.
Thank you so much for being here, being our audience. My name is Ariane McBean. I'm the artistic director of the Big Show Company. And I want to introduce the performers. This is Edem Atsu Swansea, Armin Babasulukian, Max Eugene, Angelina Atwell, and Heraclio Kiki Aguilar, also known as Junior. We are members of the Collective Memory Project. It's a project that involves actors, dancers, veterans, writers, artists, visual artists. I started this project 3 years ago in collaboration with Veterans in Film and Television, which is now VME. I had a wonderful introduction by Tim Norman, and then we just organically developed this relationship. I started to teach free memory writing workshops for veterans. We started at Bob Hope. We went to the Van Nuys Public Library, and then it just kind of kept going and going. We got a couple grants from the California Arts Council and the City of LA Department of Cultural Affairs, and then we had the opportunity to do movement workshops. So this year we have been in residence at the Ford Theater, and we have been meeting every Sunday for our dance theater church, creating art together based on the memories of U.S. military veterans, the performers, and actually the audience as well. We have, we'll be world premiering the work at the Ford, June 28th and 29th. And it's a very special show because the audience will actually be on stage with us. This is the first time the Ford has opened up the stage and created a very intimate, experiential performance opportunity where the audience will get to be up close and personal. We will be dancing, and we will be remembering, and we will be honoring the process of this project. I would just really love, if I have a few minutes, just to have a couple of the veterans who've been a part of the process to talk a little bit about their experience. I'm going to start with you, Junior, because he came to the very first writing workshop almost 3.5 years ago, and he has never missed one. Maybe one, but and actually the whole piece at the Ford really, it's about everyone, but Junior's character has been the sort of a focal point. So will you talk a little bit about your experience and what it's like to be with us every Sunday?
So my name is Heraclio Aguilar. I was in the Army. I served from 2000 to 2007. I want to thank Mike Dowling for kind of explaining that not all jobs are infantry, because when I was I was a signal soldier. I was out there before infantry. I was out there before everybody because I had to build an entire network so people can come home safely. Anyways, when I got into this project, my narrative hasn't been said yet. You know, you watch movies and you usually see medical or infantry people. And it's like, that's 15% of the military. So with this program, I kind of got to anonymously say everything that I've been through, everything I listened to on the phone lines, all those lives that didn't come back, and you know, the people that I helped out. This is actually giving them homage, basically, kind of allowing me to get that off my shoulders. So that's what this has kind of been, is remembering them, you know, because they're important to our fabric of community, and I just don't want to forget them. That's it.
Armin, do you want to talk a little bit? Yep.
My name's Armin Babasulukian. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, Hula. And I just wanted to say, you know, this was a wonderful opportunity. The past 2 years I've been working with you. We were able to take my memories and turn it into this contemporary art dance. And I can't even explain how the healing process has occurred in my life. After I got out of the Army, I had a difficult time. I didn't even understand I was having a difficult time, and I was putting my family and my friends at risk. And some of those situations I was able to verbalize and write down during workshops. And I was able to see myself, I'm talking heavy interpersonal work, through this art form. I mean, sometimes we'll be performing this and I'll be on the stage crying while this is going on, because it's just this healing process. And I just want to have a chance to thank Tim Norman. Thank you. I want to thank Mike Dowling, and of course you. Thank you, Ariane.
Of course. Adam, do you want to talk a little bit? I mean, Adam just joined us recently, and I would love to hear your perspective as a veteran coming into something that kind of had already been going, but jumping in with 2 feet and...
Yeah, I'm Adam Atu Swansea, U.S. Navy, and I'm lucky enough to have joined a team that was so open to collaborate and to just let me find my space within it, because it was such beautiful artistry they were doing before I arrived, and they were telling stories of these vets that have been through so much, and especially with Junior's story and kind of how he incorporated all of it, it really sunk home for me. And just the fact that we get to express ourselves, and hearing the panel before and all the amazing words they said about art and how it affects us coming back from deployments, the thing that helped me get through was art and being a part of people that are so open and allow you to express. So thank you so much for letting me dive in full speed ahead and just be with all these amazing artists.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just close by saying we get together for 3 hours every Sunday. We've been doing it pretty regularly. And it's not a therapy session. We come in and we make art together. But the therapy happens in the doing, in the making, in the creative moment. We share so much, but we also don't share. I mean, it comes out through the work. It comes out through the work. And we have a certain kind of intimacy now. We hold each other's memories, and each other's memories have become our own. And in that way, we have made the communication, the signal soldier web a little bit wider. Thank you for having us.
Can we please give another big round of applause to the Collective Memory Project? Thank you all so much. That was so incredible and beautiful. I know many of you will be jumping online to find out more about their work and how you can support them, so thank you so much. We're going to continue the conversation today with 2 really special individuals, continuing the conversation on veterans' mental health and wellness. It's my honor to introduce very shortly here 2 individuals who are working really at a leadership level on supporting veterans across this county and across this region. And I'm looking forward to hearing about them and really what they're offering and what they're seeing from a larger standpoint across so many different groups who are working to support our veterans. The conversation today will be with Dr. John Sharon, the director of the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health Services, who's also made this incredible We Rise event possible, so thank you to the county. And also Tess Banco, the director of the UCLA VA Veteran Family Wellness Center. So will you please welcome, with a big round of applause to the stage, Dr. John Sharon and Tess Banco.
Hey, everybody.
It's nice.
Really appreciate those of you who are willing to stick this out. It's been a really unbelievable 8-9 days. I've lost count. And this is really kind of one of the final conversations of the formal programming, although I'll let you know that the owners of this property have been moved very deeply by all of the work that's gone down in the community building, and they've offered to let us keep the art show up for another 2 weeks, which we're going to use. We're going to use it to bring in more people. For me, it's really an honor to be here with Tess. I was just talking to her backstage a little bit, asking when we first met. And before I took this job at the county, I worked on the West Los Angeles VA campus to help create a therapeutic plan. And I met Tess about half a mile away at an architect, Johnson Fain. And then I met her next when she took a job at the Veteran Family Clinic. And at that time, she approached me and she talked to me about her interests in her work and her personal story. And I think it's really an important story, and it's one that really is reminiscent of this whole effort. And for those of you who have spent the time to look at the exhibit, it really is one that starts off with a lot of trauma, and it moves through healing. And, you know, Tess is a testament to unbelievable perseverance and bravery and success. So, Tess, with that, I just wanted to maybe start by asking you to tell us a little bit about, you know, your personal story getting up to the point where you moved to Los Angeles.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Tess Banco, and it's quite an honor to be here with all of you. It's really quite an honor to be here at all, in general. But I guess I'll start by talking a little bit about my personal history, you know, growing up. So as I walked through the gallery, I noted that the walls are full of both trauma and healing. And as Dr. Sharon said, those things are both massively important to my life. So, you know, growing up, I came from a family of 6. My parents both dropped out of high school when they were 17 years old. And then they went on to have 4 children. And that was pretty tumultuous life. So I grew up pretty close to the streets. We were moving from place to place, just trying to, you know, find a place to stay. We would get evicted sometimes, you know, live in motels. For a period of time, we were living in our car. And so I had the opportunity, and I'll call it a blessing, to see a side of life that most people don't experience. But unfortunately, as happens in families like mine, there was a lot of trauma that my parents had, which they visited on us as children. So eventually, my father went to jail. My sister and I had turned him in for molestation. So that was definitely a difficult thing to overcome. And from there, I went into the foster system for a while and eventually lived back with my mother. And I ended up joining the Marine Corps. Well, I finished high school, which kind of set me apart from the rest of my siblings. So I was the only one fortunate enough to finish high school. And I ended up joining the Marine Corps by way of the Black Hawk projects in Illinois, which is a whole nother story, so we won't go there right now. But anyway, so yeah, I joined the Marine Corps. It was the only place that I thought that I could go as far as my 2 feet took me. And I really had this steadfast belief that no matter anything else, how hard I worked, that's where I was going to go. And unfortunately, for me, that wasn't the reality in the Marine Corps. It was a very difficult atmosphere. As you probably know, for many women, I suffered an assault, and then I was also injured, and that ended my military career. So I'm not sure if that's exactly where you wanted me to go with it, but I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps. I was married to a fellow service member at the time, and he ended up dying by suicide on active duty. And so, you know, people ask me often, you know, how are you able to kind of overcome all of this? And I will say one thing is resilience, which I didn't know that I had that much of, I'll be honest with you. And I'm sure there's a lot of people. It just comes out when you least expect it. And the other part of that is support. So my friends, my peers have been tremendously important in my life, especially because I didn't have really great family support. After something traumatic happens in a family, oftentimes it can tear those bonds apart. And so I think trauma is trauma, and whether you're a veteran or, you know, you're somebody from an underprivileged background, perhaps suffering abuse, it's kind of the same. So.
Thank you very much for that, Tess. And it is Memorial Day, which is a pretty sacred day on our calendar. And I know it's a tough topic. We've talked about it before, but maybe you could, discuss a little bit about, having, been married to another service member and then losing him to self-inflicted injury.
Absolutely, yeah, that was a really difficult. Most people, maybe unsurprising to learn, but most people who die by suicide don't even leave a note. And that's, I think, because they're in so much pain that they just can't anymore, like even getting words out on paper. And so that place I personally call the windowless room. So it's like you know you're in this room, and you know there's a door somewhere, but you can't find it because you can't see the light. So it was a huge challenge. You know, it was very difficult. You ask yourself a lot of questions, like, what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? Did I say something wrong? Did I not love them enough? So there's a whole lot of things that are wrapped into grief. I'm sure a lot of you recognize from your own personal lives.
And, you know, when you have talked about coming to Los Angeles, which was prompted by a shared colleague of ours, you really described being in pretty rough shape at that time. And maybe if you could talk a little bit about, you know, your return to productivity, you know, in that transition coming out to Los Angeles.
So I definitely was in rough shape at that time. I had eventually remarried. After, you know, my husband's death, I started college. The casualty assistance officer leaned over in my ear one day and whispered to me, "You need to go to school because nobody's going to take care of you." And I realized at that point, you know, I had the means. Why not go through it and just kind of, you know, work through everything I was going through? I mean, and I was using art. You know, I was writing. I took creative writing classes. I started to watercolor and things like that. So anyhow, that marriage ended up not working out, unfortunately. And that was the precipitating incident for my own post-traumatic stress to come out. So all of a sudden it just kind of hit me, like I was unable to sleep, unable to eat. I was shaking. I had all of the hallmark things that happen with post-traumatic stress, anxiety, nightmares. And I remember waking up multiple times in the night, and I couldn't get back to sleep in the very early hours usually, and I would just sit outside praying for the sun to rise. And so, you know, the only thing that helped me was a surprise phone call from a not even really a friend, just a colleague in the veterans community who said, you know, I think that there's an opportunity here for a job that you might be interested in. And so, you know, I said, what could it hurt? And I interviewed for this position from my bed, you know, kind of in the throes of post-traumatic stress disorder. So I was like, I don't have a chance. But I ended up actually getting hired on the phone, which was a first, I guess, for the interviewer. And that kind of touched off my whole new life. And I think really underscores the importance of supporting people, other people, regardless of if they're your family or not. Because I didn't have a family, like I said, to turn to. So my friends have really been there for me.
Yeah, and you, I think, really demonstrate a lot of skill and talent and energy and leadership, really, when you kind of hit the streets of LA. Certainly that was my impression, and not that long after you were hired for that job, another opportunity arose, which was related to the West Los Angeles VA campus. And in the master plan for the campus, UCLA offered to support a family well-being center that really was aimed at connecting with families and kids of service members who didn't get benefits at VA. And maybe, if you wouldn't mind, you can talk about your experience there, what's being offered in terms of resources at the VA, and, you know, really what I've seen in my own eyes in the short period of time I've gotten to know you, a transformation of paying it forward, which is a big theme. It's a big theme, I think, for this event. It's certainly a big theme for the Department of Mental Health, which is the role of peers.
Absolutely. So going back to the point where I was working, and I started, I worked at a veterans clinic here in Los Angeles that ended up shutting down. So that was terrifying. I got a pink slip, the first one in my entire life. And I have a daughter, young daughter, and I was just wondering what I was going to do. ended up applying for a position with UCLA. So the veterans community here, it's great. There is a lot of support, the camaraderie. We have the LA Veterans Orientation. We have the LA Veterans Collaborative that brings people together. So anyhow, I ended up getting that position, and what it is a partnership between the UCLA and VA. That is the first time that veterans, family members, and children have ever been seen alongside them in the VA system. And the importance of that really is, again, the support. So there are parents with post-traumatic stress and military sexual trauma and traumatic brain injury who maybe don't have the words to tell their family how they feel or what has happened to them. Because I know when I came home from the Marine Corps, I couldn't, tell, it was my grandmother really, but I couldn't tell her, what happened to me. I didn't even have like a language for what I was feeling. So it's been a really exciting and amazing experience and opportunity. I think it's hard. I mean, I think everyone struggles at one point or another, and you can go kind of into depression if you have post-traumatic stress, and sometimes it is hard to see that light even when you're doing well. But once you realize the value of life and what's in front of you, it can be hard to hold on to, but at the same time, it's really important, and for me, it keeps me going. So the mission, the identity, the meaning, and the purpose in my life are what keep me going.
That's great. As Mr. Paul Freeze raised earlier, the county is pushing big time to create a veteran peer access network, which is something I think is long overdue, and will hopefully connect up the various organizations through a team of veterans who work together. I wonder if you wouldn't mind making a couple of comments about your perspective on that effort, because you've been very vocal with me. And then after that, I think we could take a few questions from the crowd.
And thanks again for having me. It's really exciting to be here, and never thought that I would be. So I think the Veterans Peer Support and the Access Network is vitally important because it brings together all of the elements of the veterans community that are already there but need to be connected. Just building that network of support, and also, they're not all there. I mean, building new pieces of it. So a communication system, a portal where, people can go and find whatever resources they need, or access to different areas of care, mental health, education, which for me has been a huge one. I mean, education changed my life, really, and it's helping me to empower other people to change their lives. So I can't stress enough, the value of that, but I wholeheartedly stand behind the peer support network, and I think it's important for the county.
That's great. In the interest of not continuing too long, I thought it would make sense to have you all do a Q&A. You can direct your questions to Ms. Benko, although I'm, of course, happy to answer questions, too.
Any questions? No, it's so quiet.
Paul, I don't think I've ever seen you not have a question.
Once they're properly healed, and once they've gone through their own appropriate therapy and properly healed and vetted, monitored, to mentor foster youth, the other demographic that has disproportionately experienced post-traumatic stress.
So being on both sides of that, I think that there's tremendous crossover between the two communities. It's really trauma, so trauma in all forms is trauma, and then transition. So as somebody who didn't have that plan growing up, that most people have, graduate high school, go on to college, you get your first job, or maybe you had a first job in high school. I didn't know how to do all of that. I literally learned what it meant to be a family by watching TV. I would watch the Andy Griffith Show. That's where I figured it out. So if I have these strange mannerisms, that's probably where I picked it up. But and other people's families, I would go and I would kind of run away, and they would adopt me and feed me and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I survived. But I definitely think there's crossover, and I think it's really important for the veterans community and the foster youth community to come together for that mentorship and those lessons learned and that support.
If I could just dovetail, I think Tess is a great example of what the military is really all about. It's about serving other people. It's about discipline. It's about teamwork. the country has a great opportunity to provide a platform for veterans who return to have purpose and belonging, which gets lost oftentimes. And that, I think, is happening for you. I think it needs to happen with more folks, because at the end of the day, pound for pound, it's the veteran that you want trying to help you. Other questions? Go for it.
Hi. This is awkward. Okay. So my name is Susanna, everyone. Nice to meet you. For the director of the LA County Health Department, what's your background, education-wise, for both of you? And so your background and why, like the passion behind doing what you do. Like, yeah.
That's a big question. I went to school for way too long. I can tell you that. I fell kind of in love with the brain at an early age for some reason. And went as an undergraduate. I studied neuroscience at Brown University. I then did a combined MD PhD program at University of Chicago and Harvard. And I came out to UCLA to do my residency in psychiatry. When I was working as a resident and doing most of my clinical work initially, I had the opportunity, and I say this as a professor at UCLA, of working in the VA or UCLA clinically. And some people prefer to work at UCLA, and some people prefer to work in the VA, and I really always chose the VA. I found yeah, I did. I studied sleep. You can look up online if you want. I did a lot of work in sleep and identified a sleep circuit in the brain. But what drove me was the connection to people who were suffering and who were appreciative and responsive to getting help. And I recognized early that the vulnerable populations of our nation were going to be my focus in my life and my passion. And that's something I've done in the VA, it's something I've done in the nonprofit sector, and it's something I'm now doing in the county, for at-risk children and families, for frail elderly, for those with serious mental illness who are homeless, who are leaving the prison system, and certainly for the military community. It's a really hard question to ask in a short period of time, but that's really all I think about. And this show is really trying to, I think, flip the narrative on mental illness and demonstrate that we all have trauma to varying degrees. We all have certain resiliency to varying degrees, but we all deserve and need, and it is a right to get help and to reach out for help and not be scared, and to help each other and to connect as a community.
I completely agree with that. I think it's important to remember that no matter what, you're not alone. I mean, you always have yourself. So I think it's really important to be able to build up your resilience and be able to depend on yourself, even when there's nobody else there to give you a pat on the back or anything like that. So, but anyway, I started a bachelor's of social work. So it was social work in photojournalism, actually, because I do like to write. And then I continued into a master's of social work. I think part of that is also when you know what it is to suffer, you don't want to see other people suffer. And for me, it's being able to use that experience to help other people, because if not, kind of what was, what is the point of holding all that to yourself when it can help somebody else? So that's my opinion on it. And then I went back for a master's in public administration, because once you understand the system, you can change the system.
No? Okay. On Mike, Don, Des, I have a quick question. So there's a lot of resources for veterans in terms of mental health and support, but it seems oftentimes veterans don't find it until it's almost too late or it is too late. Can you please talk about maybe certain preventive measures we can put in place when veterans come to the community to help them succeed, to keep them from going down that road?
I'm sorry to keep going first. Do you mind? Well, it's a great question, Mike. And, one of the big, I think, one of the unfortunate things about, I would say, our government is that we don't transition individuals who separate from active duty to become veterans. The handoff between the DOD and the VA should be the warmest handoff in town. It shouldn't even be a handoff. It should be a live exchange, because it's in that gap that so many people kind of will lose their way. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the purpose and the belonging in life kind of evaporate. What we're trying to do in the Department of Mental Health, particularly with this Veteran Peer Access effort, is to connect with the full spectrum of veterans who are suffering, whether that means reaching upstream to reserve and guard or to active duty. We're looking to hire veterans as access agents for their peers, whether they are struggling, whether they just need to know what's out there and available to them, whether they need someone as a brother or a sister to help them feel less stigmatized about needing help and not being an army of one. And we also look to get our veterans to help each other out in the streets, because what ends up happening over time is individuals who don't get the care that they need and that they want when they reach out become reluctant to get care. They don't feel it's worth their effort. And we have to change that narrative. We have to change it by getting individuals who are trusted, which is something that is deep within the DNA of the military community, to connect with them like a battle buddy and bring them to service.
I agree. I agree with that completely. I think transition is a continuum, and so the more points of support, the better. And I mean, I think organizing them is essential, especially for the wider community and larger communities. But as community members, I mean, something as simple as holding a block party and ask if anyone's a veteran, and just kind of sitting down and talking, and maybe going to your local post and saying, hey, I'm not a veteran, but I'd love to learn more about you. I'd love to see how I could help, that type of thing. And just really being a support, just creating community and letting them know that you care. So, other questions? More?
Hello, I'm Patricia Russell, and I have a son that suffers from co-occurring disorders, and he's been traumatized a lot by the system, and I become an advocate to try to help the system change a little bit, and I really admire you two up here. You're like system changers, and that's what it's about. And I was just wondering from you, Tess, what systemic thing do you think, like the 3 things that you would tackle right now, and how?
3 things I would tackle right now. So I think the structure of the system is very important. So I'm going to speak from a broad level. Essentially, if something is built correctly, the structure is correct, it's going to function like it should. And I think a lot of the problem with organizations is that the structure is not correct. I mean, never mind that politically things come down and maybe they're unfunded mandates, or put this in place and not enough resources. So I'll say the structure, I'll say the resources, and I'll say the technology support, vital to healthy and functioning organizations, and keeping them running for the long term and for the duration. And I think these things really have an impact on the care of not only veterans, but everybody else. So, sounds right.
Well, I think those are really great examples. And the structure, from my perspective, includes the structure of kind of the Department of Mental Health that involves the relationship and structures of the other departments in the county. It relates to other government entities such as the VA and cities. It relates to the structure of our connection to our stakeholder groups to give us input about how things are going, our relationship and the ease with which we can address issues of data collection and analysis through our academic partners, our engagement of the entertainment industry, which has been really incredible here. Thank you. And everything. Our problems are collective, our solutions are collective, and we really need to create a structure that supports that basic concept. And secondly, resources. You know, we can always use more resources, and it's a matter of priorities. And I can tell you in Los Angeles County that the Board of Supervisors are unbelievably aligned, I think, and unified in their efforts to take care of our most vulnerable, and they will do everything in their power to fight to get people help and to get more resources. And they're bringing in people that will help do that. Tess mentioned the issue of technology. Technology is a really powerful tool. It's doing a lot of things, some good, some bad, but we're not leveraging it in the space, in the health and human services space. I mean, even the departments within the county, let alone, you know, entities across different government entities and between the government and the private sector are just totally, they're just totally disconnected. And we need to figure out ways in 2018 with a cloud to get it all together, share data, identify who's in need in real time, understand what they've been through, what works for them, what doesn't. We don't do that. I'm getting a hook here on the time card, which I can't even really see, but I can feel it. I think we're gonna call it, and unless someone's got a really, really pressing. Is there a hand up over there? Oh, thank you.
Excuse me. Yeah, my name is Vincent Harmon. I have a couple of questions actually, but my primary question is whether or not the trauma that you speak of, the healing, the process, everything, is it relegated to simply veterans or just everyone?
Well, I think the veteran community is one that does suffer a certain type of trauma, and it's Memorial Day today, which is why there's a big focus on veterans. But trauma and the response to trauma and the need for healing is a part of the human condition. And I think the exhibit is really all about the universality of trauma for human beings and its impact on the brain and our psyche and our lives and our families. And everybody suffers it. Everybody needs access to care to heal.
Here. Would you like mine? I just wanted to say that not only can people be traumatized, I mean, there are entire communities that are traumatized. You know, living in the projects in Illinois, I saw that, you know, firsthand. And if it's not, you know, violence, gun violence, it's traumatized by the system, so the police, those types of things. And institutions also can suffer trauma too, which, you know, we've seen in the veterans community. Some of the systems that are supposed to be caring for us are so traumatized that they're barely functional. So I absolutely believe it's a universal phenomenon, and around the world as well too.
We can certainly talk more about that after if you want. I think we're going to call it. This is really we're wrapping things up here. We have Drumming for Life, I believe, will be coming up to the stage to, you know, provide a little energy and beat and rhythm into the space. And you're welcome to stay, continue to look at the art, and thank everybody for being here. This has been an incredible experience.
Thank you both so much, and thank you all for being here at We Rise today. I do want to invite you all to stay. We're going to shift this room into a circle and have a closing drum circle in this space. So don't go anywhere or go to the gallery for a few minutes, but starting at 7 o'clock in this room, we'll have a drum circle to close out this beautiful Memorial Day weekend. So come on back, and thank you for being here.